March wins the game at the buzzer.
The More Better Podcast.
What up, everyone? Welcome into the Board Better Show. I am your host, Josh, riding solo today to talk through our NBA action, go through, obviously, the best bets for today, go through our beloved squad ride for the Discord channel, and also go through some homework review, which I think will make for some interesting discussions as well as we kind of look at teams that we project to regress, at least in some way, shape, or form in the back end of this regular season, and where we can hopefully get ahead of markets again, which we've done a pretty good job with a lot of our homework reviews so far this season. So fingers crossed we can keep that running and rolling in the right direction. So let's start there. Let's start with that homework review, and let's take a look at some teams that I do expect to regress a little bit. First one up off the block is going to be the Washington Wizards, which is interesting because that I think was like one of our first homework reviews as being a bet on team where the market clearly wasn't properly pricing this team when fully healthy, especially offensively, where they've been really, really good. They continue to still be really, really good, but now it's at a point where it's going to come backwards a little bit, and I don't think the market is ready for that yet. So hopefully we do get the opportunity again to stay ahead of it. Ahead of that team specifically as well. So looking specifically at their offense, I kind of have them projected in this next month of basketball to be about 5.5 points per 100 possessions worse than what their current output is. So they are shooting the lights out. Their quality of look is nowhere near as good as what their offense suggests it is at the moment. Especially with Monte Morris off the floor. So hoping, obviously, that starts today. We'll talk about the best bets later. But I think that we're at a point now where they're kind of exceeding their expectations individually in terms of their shot chart and shot profile. And so I think there's pretty fair reason to assume that that comes down towards some sort of mean here. And as a result, I think the Washington Wizards offense becomes a bit of a fade. I will be looking at probably some of their team total full games unders going forward, especially when we get super inflated numbers like we have today. And I'll probably look to fade this team as well, ATS. I like Atlanta today. I hate these back-to-back spots, especially where the road team won the first one. That's the only reason I don't really want to get involved with Washington today. Atlanta today against Washington, at least ATS or money line situations. But I do think they are probably better than what the market suggests in terms of value in winning this one outright. So keep an eye on the Washington Wizards totals. That's what I'll be looking at. I think that there's going to be pretty good opportunity to go against that team in these next couple of weeks, especially as well for a team situationally who is fighting tooth and nail for a play-in spot. They very much want to make the play-in. And as a result, like we've spoken about in previous shows, you're going to get these games that are probably going to be slower paced, a lot grittier. Looking even at that last ATL game, that one did go over. Both teams shot super efficiently, but it was only 101 versus 102 possessions in that game, which isn't particularly high when you look at what they scored individually as well. So again, if we can get that 101 possession mark tonight for both teams, I don't think they're going to be anywhere near as efficient. We get the regression and that full game unders is going to look really nice as a result, given, we're needing basically 60 points a quarter for it to clear that. Another team I think I'm expecting some level of regression from, especially offensively, and this one's going to be a tough one to stomach, but the Denver Nuggets on the road, that offense is going to take a big backward step, I think, in my opinion. And if you look at their last 4 road games specifically as well, you already see signs of it. They have put up pretty competitive numbers, but their shot quality numbers and their shot quality output far lower than what it has been this season. I think we're hitting that point of the season as well where a team like Denver is so cemented for that 1 seed where it's going to become about managing bodies, managing minutes, guys in and out of the lineups. They're not going to be play calling as aggressively as well in situations. So maybe some experimental lineups, maybe some experimental play calling as well in half court sets, which should bode for that level of regression. My numbers have them basically at about minus 5.2 points per 100 possessions on the road. So there's a really good opportunity tonight if you're willing to stomach that against San Antonio. I just can't obviously trust that defense, and I think that the pace will be too high for me to want to start getting involved in that one just yet. But I think there's going to be really good opportunity to take some full game unders, take some Nuggets team total unders, and take opposing teams ATS as well against Denver on the road, where if you're catching more than a couple of possessions, I think that's going to be a really, really valuable spot. This isn't a team that needs to blow the door down anymore. This isn't a team that's going to be, building on their current point differential on net ratings on the season. It's probably going to come backwards towards some sort of average. And as a result, the market probably not going to price that in just yet. They're going obviously to work off of largely season-long metrics, and especially over the last couple of months as well, where their offense has been red hot and overperforming to an extent. So that, I think, probably my favorite one, more so than Washington, is to fade the Denver Nuggets, just again because of the situational aspect of them essentially being locked into that one seed where there is no expectation or pressure for them to need to go out and play their best basketball on a nightly basis right now. They can already start putting in reps and start looking ahead to the playoffs and getting themselves in the best possible position for that one, just given especially the way the Western Conference is shaking up, because they're going to have a very hard round one matchup almost no matter what the outcome is there for the play-in situation. So that's another team for me regressing. The third and final one I think that's regressing, which is an interesting one because I don't think they really hit any particular highs this season. The Miami Heat, who I have enjoyed fading for the majority of this season. They have been a terrible team largely, especially on offense. They've been a bottom 5 offense basically all season long, and they will continue to be just that. I think the last few weeks, especially the last couple of weeks going into the All-Star break, they kind of put some things together. Even coming out of the All-Star break, their offense has looked much better, but it's not a sustainable offensive model either. It's, relying on guys like Duncan Robinson coming off the bench and shooting, 65% from deep, getting guys like Cody Zeller to put up double digits off the bench as well. This is still such a flawed offense for me. They're still going to be, bottom 5 in everything from effective field goal percentage to shot quality, projections to points per possession in half court sets. They're not a team that generates a lot of second chance opportunities either with offensive rebounds. So a lot of one and done scenarios for them, and that need and impetus as well to rely on their defense to get the job done. I think is something that comes to the fore for them. So they're a team who, despite not scoring particularly well all season, but just even based on the last sort of month of basketball, I still have them about minus 3.1 points per 100 possessions worse in this next month than what they've shown in the previous month. So a bad offense to basically be worse than they already are. We got a great situation last game where we cashed full game total under on a couple of numbers and their team total under. I'm pretty big on their team total under tonight. Again, against the Cavs, I'm honestly considering maybe chucking another unit on that, making a 3-unit play, which I haven't done this season. But just because of the fact that there is the regression expected, plus against an elite defense that we can't really trust, especially if Garland's out, I think I probably like it even more. If the market's going to keep pushing them as favorites, we're going to get a better team total line as a result. That's just how the markets work. And that'll be a good reason for me to even potentially buy more in this spot. And then obviously, like I said, looking ahead, I'll look to fade this offense pretty aggressively as well down the stretch. I don't think they're going to get it done offensively. If they are going to force their way into, a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, and if they are going to find a way to somehow jag that division title, it's going to be on the back of their defense. And I think that a lot of teams are starting to figure out that they are a little bit one-dimensional offensively. You can force them to sort of play into what you want from a defensive scheme perspective. And the better teams are going to be able to do that as well, especially ones who still have things and reasons to play aggressive basketball on a nightly basis here in the regular season. So those are the 3 teams I've circled and highlighted for regression. I think we're going to be pretty aggressive with positions here. I think those are 3 teams worth looking at yourselves as well. Washington Wizards to regress, ATS, and scoring-wise, the Nuggets road offense in particular. I think at home as well if we get some inflated totals, but that road offense is going to regress pretty big. So, opposing teams, ATS and the Denver Nuggets team total unders on the road, going to be really good looks. And the Miami Heat, their team total under against any efficient defense, basically. and fading them, I think, as favorites where teams are catching points against them is going to be a really, really great look. So that is going to be our homework review for today. Hopefully we can get ahead of the markets there again. And like I said, we performed really well with our homework review so far this season. Hopefully that continues. We've got a couple of bets today that kind of highlight that as well. But let's jump into today's card because I think it is going to be an interesting one here. I think the first game up, Hawks Wizards, like I said, it's counting very heavily on some of that regression kicking in tonight. I like the idea of Washington's offense to come back down to earth. And obviously, I like the idea of these back-to-backs going under after the first game went over. We didn't see a particularly fast-paced game. We saw a lot of three-point shooting in that fourth quarter as well, which helped it go over the number and only just scraped there in the end. But for me, it's largely about Atlanta potentially being able to slow things down, Washington not wanting to run and gun either, because that's going to be the best way for Atlanta to be efficient offensively. So we've seen the Wizards enjoy half-court basketball in these games, and I think that's exactly what we get here. It's going to be a pretty important division game for both teams as well. They're both live to win the division technically, so I don't think we have to worry too much about this one being an up and down affair. I think it's just going to come down to whether the defenses can get enough to prevent them from being too efficient offensively. We're not asking for a lot to fall under such an inflated total either. So my number for this game came out at 229. So I have a pretty decent market edge here in terms of my projections. And like I said, I just feel as though hopefully the bottoming out starts for Washington today. For us to get a pretty comfortable win here. Let's dive into the more interesting game from a betting perspective at least in terms of what our investments say. Cleveland at Miami. Now, obviously, I got a pretty bad number here on the Cavs. I got -1.5 last night. That was before we got news that Darius Garland would be questionable. Obviously, I wouldn't have jumped in so early if I thought there was even the potential for that, but a bit of an unexpected blindsiding, which has happened pretty regularly in the NBA this season for a lot of guys. So, we can't complain too much. It is frustrating. He didn't go through shoot around, but that doesn't necessarily mean he won't play. We've seen that a couple of times this season where a player sits shoot around but still plays. Obviously, if he plays, I think the Cavs go back to favoritism here anyway, so we're not going to lose any market value. If he's out and this climbs any higher, I'm going to buy more on Cleveland. I make this Cavs plus somewhere between Cavs +1.5 +2 with Garland out. So if we start catching anywhere around 3.5 or better, I have to play Cleveland again at that point. And this becomes a game where we have a lot of investment in. Like I said, already on the Miami Heat team total under as well for a pretty big play for me there. That's already 2 units that, again, could still get higher. The Heat offense against very good defenses is not good. The Cavs defense against very bad offenses we spoke about last show is very good. When they've played teams bottom 6 in effective field goal percentage, which Miami is one of those, excuse me, they've held teams under their team total 10 of the 12 times that they've played. The only 2 times it went over was the San Antonio Spurs. Both those games were over 100 possessions each, which is way above what Cleveland plays at anyway. So the first game, these two teams shot at 50% and still went under the full game, still went under the team total. I think that they're probably due for some regression in terms of shooting the basketball here. And it might even be a slower paced game than last game, which was 92 possessions apiece. I project it to be 89, 90 possessions each for this one. So like I said, a slower paced game with offensive regression probably due. Every matchup under the sun works in our favor here in terms of Miami's offense not being able to execute against an elite defense. So for that reason, like I said, it's already a 2-unit play, and I'm probably going to consider adding a little bit more to my position here. This is just one of those situations where everything lines up in terms of model projections, situational positions in terms of teams playing back-to-back in the way that they have, and of course the on-court matchups, which I look at, and everything screams it being unders as well, and Miami struggling. So this is going to be the biggest position we have this season, is this Cleveland-Miami game. it'll certainly make for interesting viewing. Look forward to watching it and jumping in the Discord and watching everyone lose their minds when Miami drops 30 points in the first quarter again. But don't be surprised if that happens. Do not be surprised if that happens at all. It does not necessarily mean we're in a bad position either, as you saw last game. So those are those two. One more position I have for today on the Raptors Lakers. I'm kind of mad that the Raptor support has been as aggressive as it has been. I should have expected it. This was always a Toronto spot. We're basically at my number now. So I haven't got involved in that from a side perspective. Did go back on a Lakers unders though. We spoke last time, a couple of shows ago in our homework review about the Lakers being an unders team. We've profited from that already. Hopefully we can get another situation where we profit out of it. Under 225 tonight. D'Angelo Russell coming back obviously gives them a little bit more offense and potentially a little bit less defense. I don't know if you necessarily lose too much there when swapping D'Lo for Dennis Schroeder specifically. But it just comes down to the style of these two teams. Toronto's going to slow this thing down, force LA into half-court sets on offense and trust that they can get the stops, which I think they can do. The way they pack the paint, the size and length that they have there, keeping the Lakers off of the offensive glass, I think they'll do that pretty well, which, you know, means a lot of one-and-done possessions both ways. I think the Lakers can do the exact same the other side, because if this does become a half-court basketball game, we've seen time and again how Toronto can struggle to generate good looks offensively, and I think that might be the case again tonight. So my projections for this game came out at 2-2-1 flat. So about 4 points of market edge on that 225. And I still think it might even be lower than that. This might be one of those games where, you know, we see a scoreline maybe 105, 100. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the case. And, you know, again, this is a game where even if both teams shoot 50% from the field, I think as long as neither team is allowing the other to run in transition, and that's probably the point of emphasis, I think, from both head coaches, it'll still probably fall under this 225 as well. So this is more about ensuring that both teams do, in fact, make a point of getting back in transition defensively and forcing half-court sets. And if that's the case, I'm going to be very, very confident in our position. And we should see that in the first quarter showing up as well. You know, I think we'll know pretty quickly if we are going to be on the right side of this one, regardless of where the market closes, but from just a matchup perspective specifically. So those are my bets for today. Like I said, I still might get a little bit more involved in the Cleveland game as well. I wouldn't necessarily rule that being out of the case just yet. But let's do it. Let's get into everyone's favorite segment. I'm going to pull these up. Chris, let's fire up Squad Ride, and I'll take a look at what's on offer for everyone.
You're very confident, I'll say that. But you shouldn't be.
All right, squad, let's see what we're at. We are 9-7 on the season for you guys in the Discord. You got hooked last game, which sucked. So Evan Mobley over 15.5 points, finished with 15 points, missed a free throw at the end as well to potentially send that one over. And that would have put you at 10-6. That's really much better than I was projecting these to go. But hey, look, I'm going to do my best to keep you guys in the positive. I would love to see the Squad Ride finish as close to 60% as possible by the time the playoffs come around. So let's see what we have on offer for today. I'll pull up the Discord chat real quick. Let's have a look. We've got Wolves first quarter -1.5. Raptors Lakers first quarter under 57.5. From those first quarter plays, Raptors Lakers first quarter unders obviously jumps off the page. We've seen Toronto start these games on the West Coast pretty terribly. So, you know, I'm going to go with that being the better of the first quarter plays. Wolves first quarter, I think, should get there. They're a frustrating team for me at the moment. They just seem to continuously underperform over the full 48, but they are pretty reliable in the first 12 minutes at least. So I like that one. Cavs money line, obviously I like that one. I'm not going to double down there. Lakers +2.5. I could not think of a worse Squad Ride bet to make, to be honest. But power to you guys that are going to bet on the Lakers tonight. Best of luck, because I think you're going to need it. Malik Beasley over 2.5 3-pointers made. That's one that I do like for the Lakers. side of things tonight. We obviously know that Toronto's Achilles heel has always kind of been stopping the perimeter looks, especially from corner three. If they can run some good sets for him, he's going to get some wide open looks, and that's a guy that can catch fire pretty quickly. I like Malik Beasley over 2.5 3-pointers made a lot. Fred VanVleet under 20.5 points. I like it. I think that there's some pretty good narratives to be made there after his refereeing rant last game. I wouldn't expect many favorable whistles for Fred VanVleet tonight, put it that way. So the under 20.5, I like that. Jakob Poeltl in that game over 21.5 points and rebounds. I like that one a lot. He's going to have to be active on the glass, which I think he will do, keeping AD off the glass. He's a terrific rebounder. He's a terrific offensive rebounder as well. And I think that the Lakers are still a little bit susceptible to some of those second chance opportunities, and offensive rebounding and scoring in and around the rim is seemingly still a bit of an issue for the Lakers. And I think that when you have AD playing this sort of free roam defender, he can get pulled out of position, especially having to deal with guys like Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, who's been aggressive in and around the mid-range. If they can make the extra pass for him, I think we get a lot of simple Jakob Poeltl layups. There's a lot of opportunities to roll to the basket as well for layups. That stands out as probably the best one. I projected him to go above both his points and rebounds individually. So over 21.5 points and rebounds. I think we're going to lock that in, Chris. I think we're going to go with Jakob Poeltl over 21.5 points and rebounds, the official squad ride. That look was Canuck James. You got hooked last game as well. So let's see how you perform tonight. Let's hope you don't go down the Zachariah path and lead the team astray for too long. But if we can get, like I said, if we can get to 10-7, I like that a lot. So, let's see if we can do. And just quickly touching on the live chat, I love Jared Vanderbilt. I'm a huge Jared Vanderbilt fan. I know what he can do defensively. It's why I'm on the full game under Zachariah. Come on, man, keep up with me here. But again, he's going to be preoccupied with Siakam. I think that's going to be the matchup that they get him on specifically. And like I said, AD is probably just going to be playing the free roam defender. So yeah, you have to give up something at some point. That's just how the NBA works. And Jakob Poeltl's probably just going to be the beneficiary by default, I think, more so than anything else. Not because he's obviously, I don't think he's anything particularly special, but he just kind of fits roles and plays them pretty well and effectively. So this will be the case again tonight for me. Let's go Poeltl over points, rebounds as the official squad ride. Let's see if we can get you guys back on track tonight in a big way and roll. And like I said, it's going to be a pretty big card for me and a pretty big investment game for me watching that Cleveland-Miami game. But if you aren't already in the Discord chat, do come and join. I'll be live watching a lot of these games with you guys today. I have a pretty free schedule ahead, so that's going to be fun. And I did my best to throw in the word schedule one time for the chat real quick. Let's leave it at that, though. It's a short and sweet show. It's riding solo. We haven't got too much else to talk about today. But hopefully we get ourselves ahead of track before the weekend, and then a good weekend for everyone. Best of luck with all your bets. We'll be back next week with 3 shows and hopefully 3 guests to provide some extra perspectives for everyone. Real quick as well, everyone in the Discord chat, drop a tag on anyone you'd like in the show. We'll reach out. We'll make sure that we can get them on. The more conversations we can have, the better. And we'd love to try and feature as many guys as you enjoy talking to as well. So I'm sure we'll get some fun suggestions as well. Hopefully not too many dickheads suggesting the wrong people. But let's also try. Hey, I like that idea. Let's try and get some of the Discord guys on the chat. Let's have a fun session before the end of the season as well. Maybe we can get a few voices in here and do like a live Twitter Spaces. But hey, that's all for today, man. I appreciate every one of you guys in the chat as always. Thank you so much for taking the time to join, chat some hoops. Let's cash some tickets for tonight. Like I said, best of luck with all of your individual DGen wagers as well. Hopefully we get that squad ride on track. And then let's tune up for a fun and busy weekend as well. Let's chat this afternoon throughout the rest of the card. And for the live shows, we'll be back next week, like I said, 3 times. So look forward to seeing you all then. And we will do our very best to ensure that we keep rolling in a profitable way to close out the season. Thanks as well to the producer, Chris, making this thing look as pretty as possible. Catch you all in a little bit.